God save King George the Third. No, what's his name? Charles the Fifth. God save the King on today's momentous day. Vivat Rex Carolus. Long live King Charles. Charles the Third. Yes, indeed. And on the day of Charles the Third's coronation, we've got down here, hang on a second, got Mike's Schecter Diamond Series, and it's in a beautiful, well, I call it Capri Orange, but that's probably only a Ford colour. I don't know who had maybe a Fender colour. Anyway, it looks like Capri Orange to me, beautiful orange colour. And look at this for a beautiful strat style beastie. So this has come in for setup, including fret leveling, and fingers crossed it should not be too complex a thing. What we're going to do is set the action, make some small adjustments to the tusk nut that's already in there. So a little bit high at the moment. There's a bit of wear on the first fret mainly, which we can hopefully take off in the leveling, and nothing I can see anywhere else, so it's all in pretty good condition. We've got the truss rod adjuster there at the heel, and yeah, we'll adjust that, set the action really low, replace the metal string tree with a tusk one, and we've got some supplied strings there to restring it with. So I'm hoping it will be all nice and straightforward, but it is a beauty, isn't it? Look at that for colour. Interesting dot markers, these little brass inlay things, and they look brass. I think they are brass, little brass rings. And then we have a slight slant on here, slant slope, so you can see how it thins out at this point. It's on a slope, which is a nice Schecter thing, made in Indonesia. It's got a sort of embossed, burned in pyrographics logo. So all in all, a very clean looking thing, and hopefully all is good. This seems to be quite a big gap there, but I'm sure that's normal or correct. I don't see there should be any problems with that. So I've got my microphone back on the head mounted thing here, points at microphone. I've been having some trouble with the levels coming out of that, and I did a quick test this morning, and I thought I always had it set on the microphone setting. There's a line and a mic setting, and I thought I had it set on mic because guess what? I'm using a mic, right? But that seemed to cut it down a lot. So I tried it out this morning and flipped it across into the line signal, which I thought would be too higher signal out of this, but maybe it's the preamp, and maybe that should be. It's not just a mic, is it? It's a preamp. It's a boom head-mounted mic with a preamp in it, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so I've adjusted that, so we should be all right. So even though I spilt juice in my bag again, the stupid top came off the thing and went all over my microphone. I think it should be all right. I've tried it out. So this has got a lovely 2-point tremolo on it, and it feels lovely and smooth. Now this goes back, it's perfectly positioned at the moment, and it's set with, so it's parallel to the body with about 2 millimeters raised off the deck, and that gives it a sort of by default a tilt back, so it gives it a tone on the G, slightly over half a tone on the B, and probably just about slightly under half a tone on the E. Not quite half a tone. So, I mean, to have it so neatly set up, that's how it came out of the factory. We could go for a slightly larger range of thingy. And the two ways of achieving that, really, one is to raise the whole bridge a little bit up off its things to give us a further tilt back, but the problem is that raises the action high, so unless we can drop the saddles commensurate amount, but we shall see. Anyway, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to aim to set this to the action I want, and then check the first fret action. So I have measured it already. It's got 1.6 at the last fret here and a 2.5 last fret on the low E. So that's higher than it needs to be. So I'm going to take them down. I double check the relief on this, and it's pretty flat. It's got a tiny bit of action, probably about 1/10 of a mil, if that. So the first thing I'm going to do is take down the action at this end and get myself to the target action, which still, I'm going to go for 1.5 on the low E last fret, as I always do, across to 1.2, and that should play. So we have 1.67 or 1.7 here. So as I lower this, of course, to get this right, that will also lower the first fret action very slightly, but because of the geometry of it, it won't be quite hardly noticeable the amount it goes down. Now this one obviously is also high. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to do a sort of visual crude adjustment to get these approximately in the right place. So I'm just kind of positioning roughly where these things should be. And I'll come back and do the fine tuning. And obviously this is partly based on knowing the heights as I've already measured them. So obviously we're going to go out of tune. I'm going to just bring it back up to tune again. Now I'm going to check more carefully. We have 1.5, we have 1.6, tiny bit of reduction, and we have too much. So how many of you watched the Great British Coronation today? I didn't exactly watch it, although Claire had it on in the background, so I did see some of it, but I wasn't really paying it too much attention. I mean, I do like history, and I like the significance of, you know, like historic moments. But I'm not a great fan of royalty. I think it's anachronistic. I think, you know, I've talked about this before, but the whole privilege through birth, by nature of more dint of birth thing, is a bit crazy in this world of ours. Where the royal family has access to so much power, or finance, if you like, put another way. Okay, good, good. Yeah, so not my thing, but okay, there's our playing action, and we get fret slap, which we kind of expect. So next thing I'm going to do, we'll take care of that, by the way, with fret leveling. But now we're on to just checking the first fret action now. Okay, so these are all just slightly over, and I want to bring them down now to the correct height, which I'm saying is going to be 0.3 of a mil. They're not far off, some of them, and we'll take care of that, and also make sure that as I take them down, we'll get the slots wide enough too, just so there's no grip. Now I can see with this brush, I can see that I'm widening the slots a little bit, but without taking the front down. And if you sometimes you don't know, you can get a sharp pencil and you can paint right into the, if you can reach, sharper the better, paint right into the slot and you get a bit of shininess. And then as you're cutting, you've got a little guide really with that, whoops, with that shininess. See that? It runs just about to the front. I need to aim to take it down towards the back and then leave the front bit still shining, and then when I take the front bit down, that will be the height going down. So we want it to lean backwards, or we want the slot to lean backwards, and we want to take it down very slightly at the front, only very slightly. So it's very close, so only the slightest, gentlest of cuts at all, and we should be, I think that's, call that on the mark. Now we go to the next one, which will be the 13. And again, let's use the, if we can, here's the, can't quite reach in with that one. So backwards first to widen. And now if I've got room, I can get not easy. I brought from home my latest secret weapon, my officey style pencil sharpener. This, with a bit of luck, gets me a perfect point, which may just reach into there and put a little bit of a shine on there. For some reason it doesn't want to do it right now, so we'll keep a little more adjustment. Got some new swallows, swifts, swallows out there flying around inside the building at the moment, so they're making this, this is going to be their home again by the looks of it. Do. Very close, but again I'll just widen it and deepen it very slightly. Yeah, the swallows are flying around inside the building. I just opened the door a minute ago, and so they're here. They're back for nesting, I think, which is cool. I like to see them. Okay, now we'll come down and do the base side. .26. This is quite low already. I would leave that one there, that's on. So is that one, interestingly. Just interesting how the base ones were already on the mark, just the high ones. Right, so that's at the playing action I want, based on this playing action at the bridge, neck relief I want and now the first fret action set how I want it. And so what I will now do, or in a minute, I will prepare the frets for leveling. And so to do that, I'm going to mark them up with the marker pen. Hopefully I'll just do half at a time. I don't want to slack them off too much. So what I'm going to do is just run down with the pen and mark them off. And I'm going to level these, and the aim will be to clear. There's a choke at the very top here on about the, I wrote it down in my book, about the 17th, 18th, 16th, 17th fret. So bend a high E, sorry old chap, bend a high E, and you get a little choke out. So that was at the action it already was, so this is now obviously going to choke out even more. So our aim will be to level that out to free up those chokes, and yeah, get it playing at the action that I've set. And that's the fun part about leveling frets this way, is that it's all about setting the desired action and then making the fretboard comply with that. And that's kind of the opposite than how, or opposite to how most of us experienced guitar playing when we were growing up. So that we tended to get guitars, you know, we were given or bought a guitar somehow, got hold of one, and we basically were stuck with whatever point the guitar started to choke at. That was our lot. We couldn't go any lower, so we got used to just playing it as it was. We probably tried a few times to change the action, but actually no, I don't want that. We tried to change the action, but we would discover that it would end up choking out the minute we lowered it. So now, before running the cameras, I got my banana fret leveling tool and kitted out with some fresh 400 grit. So it's a brand new tool today, and shall use it now to get going. So I'm going to calibrate the tool on the we can calibrate it inside of the high E, but it's our first point, and then we'll use that setting for the next two, or the first two tracks, as I call them. So that is probably a fraction over curved. So we went up to the village playing field today because, as a parish council, I'd suggested, I think everyone had got a bit, the village had got a bit celebration weary, so nobody really wanted to do anything for the King's coronation. So I suggested a few weeks ago, first of all I said, why didn't we put a portrait of the King up and just have a cup of tea and get a few people around? You know, anyone who wanted to could drop in and raise a British tea cup to His Majesty. Just that we mark the occasion, really, more than anything else. And so that was accepted, and then somebody came up and said, well, tell you what, given the King's feeling about the environment, why don't we make that planting a tree instead of a picture of him? So that's fine by me. So we've got an oak tree, and so today we went and dug a hole. We're going to symbolically plant it tomorrow, because it's better be planted really in November when the ground is going to be wetter and more often irrigated by natural means. So, but we're having a little ceremonial thing, so that's good to do. So first run on the leveling beam. I'm just trying to see where's the best view. This could be quite good. We don't want too much glare so you can see it's cutting quite a lot, fair amount, a little less, some quite a bit, a bit more, quite a bit, and pretty much all the way, not too different levels, except there's a flat spot right at the end there, 2 frets, but overall that's not too bad. So it's an even, showing an even cut, which is good. That tells you that the neck is pretty, well, fairly level in terms of its overall ups and downs. So I'm going to stop there. That's removed the wear on the lower frets, which is great. I'll just sort of brush off the dust. Now people sometimes worry about this dust, thinking it's magnetic. It's not. A, because it's dust, and it's mainly, it's as much the stuff on the sandpaper than anything else. But secondly, it's a nickel, copper nickel alloy, isn't it? A nickel alloy, so it's copper and whatever it is. So it doesn't really has the tiniest amount of ferrous material in it in order to be in any way magnetic. So it doesn't stick to pickups. Now I'm going across the first fret here, and I can see we're just about taking out the fret wear out of the first fret there, which is quite good. Again, running across all the others and up to the end here, which now I know that we've got a slight problem right the way high up, and I'm going to test it out in a minute. So you can see there's quite a lot of cut down there. But again, it's not much. We're only dealing with 400 grit here and a few passes, as you can see. So it's not. It kind of looks a lot to begin with on a maple neck, but it's not a lot. That's good. I think we're doing all right. Now I'm going to recalibrate at this point, since we're now moving on to the G track, or the track in which the G string lives. And I think what we'll find mostly on this guitar is that the majority of work needed doing is to iron out the fret slap, and there's the distinction I've made in my guitar setup work between something I call fret buzz, which is a familiar experience of when a single fret, typically a single fret, stands in the way of the string and causes a buzz, and that's because a single fret is high, or it can be caused by another single fret being particularly low, so that it's caused usually by one fret. Yeah, that's a high one, number 3. So number 3 is interesting because that was an area that Mike told me to look out for. Yeah, so yeah, the challenging bit is getting it to play with the fret slap removed. Now at the moment it's not too bad, not too bad. So as we come down to the wound strings, I'm going to I start thinking about the other kind of fret buzz that I sort of distinguish between, and I call that fret slap, and that is distinct from fret buzz in that fret buzz tends to be caused by a single high or low fret, and you might get one per neck, or 1 or 2 maximum at different spots on the neck. Fret slap, you'll find it is a kind of buzz that follows a whole series of notes in big patches up and down the neck, and seems to be worse with the lower frets, the lower strings, sorry, the wound strings. So fret buzz, I sort of discovered, is kind of, sorry, fret slap. It's a kind of fret buzz, but instead of being caused by individual high and low frets, it's caused by groups of frets. So you start thinking less of individual frets side by side and one choking out the movement of the string when you fret on another place, but think of it more as a series of ups and downs. So the overall topography of the neck is how I see it. And so when I come to alleviate, if possible, any fret slap, what I'm aiming to do is to impose the curve of this thing, which is an approximation of the curve of the neck taken by those 3 brass sampling points, if you like, and because it's an approximation and the tremolo arm, truss rod bends quite smoothly, I'm able to impose that curve onto this slightly bumpy neck. Now this neck is probably only slightly bumpy under load, which is what happens when you load it. So systems of fret leveling that level with the strings off and the neck relaxed are good. They're 95% good, but they miss that extra little bit of distortion of the neck that happens when it's loaded and in particular squashed longitudinally. And that's where this strange little, hardly discernible, you can't really see it, this little bumpiness occurs, but you can pick it up by the groups of frets that this tool just clips off the tops of these little clusters of frets. And so I found that with careful use of this, and as I say, at this stage I don't try not to press down on it. I try to sort of treat it very lightly, so I let the shape of the perfect curve, this thing, impose itself gently onto the imperfect curve underneath. And so I'm still doing it by sideways movement, but I'm trying not to press down in any particular spot. I'm just letting the whole curve of the truss rod do it. And I found that over time I've discovered that that allows, or that gently tidies up this strange, or just clips the tops off the clusters of high frets. And the way I describe it is to say that it imposes the smooth curve onto the slightly imperfect neck curve when that's under load. And so as a result of that, it just creates a fraction more space for the strings to move, and that absolutely minuscule little difference seems to take some of the slap out of the strings. Now you can get rid of it, of course, by raising the action, but that defeats the object, because people come and say, well, I want a low action, how can you do it? So you don't want to achieve it by raising the playing action at this end, or more neck relief, because people want a combination of low and flat. So in order to alleviate or eliminate this fret slap, as I call it, we just have to let the rod do its thing, keeping its shape and imposing that curve wherever possible onto the less than perfect shape, and say in doing so it just snicks away a little. Now you see what we're seeing here, I don't know how well you can see this, there's a little high hill here, valley, hill, valley, hill. See, that's 3 hills and 3 valleys showing up on this guitar. You can't see them by looking down the neck, but the cutting tool is telling me that. And so as I just iron out those 3 tops, we're creating that little bit more space for the fret, for the string. To play. Good. Now the final one. And the reason, of course, that the fret slap increases as you go across the strings is because the thicker wound strings they spin more, they move more. And so they're going to strike the frets. They're more likely to strike the frets because they're moving more. So we have to, it's usually the lower strings, the wound strings, that we have to be most thorough on in order to alleviate this fret slap. And so on the E, I'm going right to the edge. I want to make sure it picks up all of those 3 hills. And of course, just like the single notes, single frets that are high, when you have a cluster or a hill of frets that are high, you're also basically having to iron out the difference between the hills and the valleys. So you're kind of bringing them closer to each other in order for the thing to play better. So again, once I've done this little bit of application, again, it's showing me there's a high spot, there's a high spot, and there's a high spot. We've got a clear low spot, 13 and 14, 1, 2, 1, 2 low, so, and 7 low. So there's very definitely, those are the little hills and valleys. And like I say, you don't know those without this method. Make sure it's not hitting any pickups on the way. Tiny little bit left. I'll just do the E, low E one more time. The other thing you've got to bear in mind is that within reason, if you, I know Mike was saying to me that he's playing with he wants a low action, and he wants that partly because he's got hand strength issues. So, but if you are a hard hitter and a big striker or a big plucker, then there is a kind of natural physical limit, or there are constraints that imposes on what I can do, because there comes a point that if you really hit the fingerboard, the strings hard, then below a certain action you can't go because the strings physically need enough room to move. And you can level to a certain point, but then there comes a point where it's not a good trade out of fret metal for trying to accommodate somebody's heavy style. And if that's what you end up doing, then the problem is you hit a kind of point of diminishing returns. You don't get anything back for keeping on trying. Okay, so while I'm here and I've got the strings on, I'm just going to slack off these top 2 for a minute, although it's a bit difficult because they're all related to each other with the effectively floating trem. But I'm just going to use it. I want to keep the strings there so I can just replace the string tree. Well, I've got the strings there to give me the guide. We've got the hole already. I just want to make sure it's right. So, and also, I think we will. We need the shorter one, I think. We will just make sure that the hole size is good, suitable for this thingy, tree. I think it's just about right, actually. So it's got a. I think originally when they put it in, I think what they've done is they've not drilled a pilot hole big enough, because you can see 2 little white lines which tell me that it could probably use a very small bit of widening, which needs to be a special drill bit, which of course has now gone. Oh no, I put it here normally on the wall, so I know where to find it because it's the one I need to widen things, and it's okay, it's taken off somewhere. I can't remember exactly which one it is, so let's see if my super duper kit will supply me with the right sort of thing. 2.5, that's a 2, so 2.5 should, yeah, it widens it a little bit. Hold fire. So just to give that little relief on the hole, if it wasn't big enough before, it's going to be big enough when you're putting in a slightly different screw. Um, there it is. Yeah. So we come to a end of a strange time. I don't know if I mentioned it, but we had to go away last week, and the idea was that Claire's twin brother, who's not got great health and he lives in the United States, and the idea was that he was going to come over and visit, sort of a rare visit, because of his health. So it was a big deal, and he planned it with his daughter, yeah. So the whole plan was about them coming over, and I guess they were going to do a fairly kind of busy tour, but he has some seizures, which are now, when he's at home in the States, are mostly under control. But anyway, he wanted to come. He may not have too many chances. If his health doesn't improve, then his opportunities to come over are a bit limited. So the idea was, the interesting bit is I haven't adjusted these last 3 slots, and they may be verging on the too low, which means I need to fit a new nut if that's the case. I'd rather not, but we'll keep an eye on that. Anyway, yeah, so he came over, and his daughter came over with him to help out, or to keep him company and get a holiday and see relatives and so on. So we were going to go up to collect them in London and bring them back, and so they booked a guest house down here, and we sort of kind of all the plans were being made of what we were going to do and where they were staying and so on and so on. And I also fitted in going to see my mum in London while I was there, and also to make use of the petrol to drop by Adams and pick up a few more kits worth of guitars to build for him, which is kind of what we tend to end up doing when I go up there. And anyway, so that was all planned, and then the day before we were due to drive up, we got notice that Claire's brother had arrived, got up early the very next day, and they'd gone to Paris, which kind of raised our eyebrows a bit, because for somebody who's not that well, coming over on a long flight and then going 5 o'clock in the morning in jet lag time and going off to a foreign capital, and I've done that run, it's quite tiring. Anyway, so we were like, oh, that doesn't sound like a good thing to do. Anyway, on the way back from his trip, he developed COVID, and so along with his general health, which isn't great, we found by the time they got back, the daughter had to head for the hospital, and they kept him in because he'd been COVID, but he'd also been having seizures on the way back from Paris because of when the temperature rises, he's prone to seizures. So that was all looking an absolute disaster from health-wise. So thankfully it wasn't anything terribly bad, no strokes or anything. Anyway, so we got in touch and checked out if everything was okay with his daughter, and she was exhausted and worried and running around in a foreign country being a carer and so on and so on, so it's not easy. And we said, right, well, look, we're going to come up anyway, whatever, we'll see how it goes. So we went up in the hire car that we'd rented, fit us all in and bring us back. and got up there, and it turned out that he had to stay in. So I got to see my mum. Claire got to see her sister, and then we came back without them because they couldn't. He was still in hospital. They couldn't leave, and so there was no idea at that point about exactly when he was going to be able to get out. So we came back without them and just kind of kept in touch and tried to work it out or see what was happening. And basically, the rest of the time sort of passed with him being in the hospital in the UK. And he's sort of only just got out, and he's due to fly home, I think, tomorrow. So it's the whole of the holiday for him and his daughter just disappeared, bless them. They got back from that. It was tiring enough. I'm not a good driver at this age, so I was pretty knackered from driving. But we got to see my mum, and I got to see Adam, and we got to see Claire's niece and other family members, so that was kind of good. But such a shame that we didn't get to see the brother or him to come down and stay in our neck of the woods, because I think they were really looking forward to that, and we were certainly looking forward to them being down there, showing them the chilled life of West Devon, in the gorgeous, well, I guess it would have been mostly spring rain at this point in time, but it's not quite made it to summer yet. Right, so having leveled the frets now, I'm going to recrown them, and they're sort of jumbo, but I don't know how jumbo-y they are. They are fairly big, so I'm going to start with use the jumbo edge of the thing and just see how that does the crowning. Looks pretty good, actually. I'll stick with the jumbo side. Now, the whole idea of the recrowning business is to basically round off the flat spots that I've put on the frets in the process of leveling them, because leveling them with that beam, the truss rod, obviously flattens them in the process. So we don't want them to play with flat spots. It's not good for note precision or comfort. So the idea is to take flattened frets, and using this concave file to gently round them out, but doing it in such a way that I can keep an eye on the black marker pen running along the top of the fret, and so I can keep filing, and as long as I leave a little thin black strip of marker pen across the top of the fret, then I know that the fret hasn't been taken down any lower relative to the fret next to it. So in a simple way of putting it, I'm preserving the relative levelness that we've just achieved in the previous process. So anyway, yeah. So we came back, and of course with all the kind of bank holiday, May Day, Coronation bank holiday, it's played a bit of a mess with orders. So I've been waiting for the 3 tusk left-handed nuts that I ordered quite some time ago to arrive from JHS, who I get my tusk stuff from, and I think they probably just finally got a delivery and sent them out yesterday. But again, with the bank holiday on Monday, I probably won't see them till Tuesday or Wednesday, which will be the earliest. Then I can get those 3 Firebirds finished. So they're backed up a little bit. On a plus side, Nick got his 7/8 strat build, third custom build I've done for him. Third, I think, over the years. So he's a good repeat customer, and somebody I really like working for, because he's very detailed in what he wants, and he mocks things up, and we can work things out together, and we seem to have a pace that seems to really work. He'll say do something, and then I'll naturally delay and then he'll come back and say, have you done that yet? Because what I was thinking in the meantime was, and I'll go, well, luckily, no, I haven't done that. So, yes, we can do it that way, and then go off in another direction. So it seems to work out pretty well. What else has been going on? Well, for the first times in a long time, I've had a couple of days where I've been able to take care of one or two own guitar things and a bit of tidying up stuff too, which is great. Tried to get the Triton planar thicknesser finished. I did some quick research which suggested that the brushes may be worn, which when I took them out, I had ordered some more, but I took them out and looking at them, I'm not really sure they were that worn, but anyway, I first got the wrong sized set from a company, and then I finally got the right size, and that was about 30 quid later. And I replaced them, and it still was starting and half stalling and hunting and kind of chundering. So I did some more research on armatures and those kinds of things, which I don't really know anything about. So, but help from friends on Really Love Guitars Facebook, and also good old Google led me to believe that either I need to rebuild the whole motor part, the armature-y bit, or I need to just replace it. And I actually came across a brand new one for that unit for 40 quid. So I just thought, you know, I need my time more than I need to be triumphantly rebuilding my own thing from scratch. So I took the easy option, but it means I can take out the existing one and I guess recondition it a bit. I'm full of that. I took out my knackered old jigsaw the other day, which is similarly refusing to work properly. And I thought, oh yeah, I know what to do now. And so I took that apart, and it's over there on the side. There's so many little bits, I just couldn't be bothered to fight it to get it back together again, which is a bit lazy. But same way, I thought, you know what, I think I'll just spend 50 quid or 40 quid at some point and get another one. I don't use the jigsaw very often at all, but it is handy to have when I need to cut some plywood or something. But it would be a lot of struggle to reassemble this thing. The wires aren't quite wide enough for a normal sized hand to hold the whole thing together and get it reassembled properly, and there's one bit I can't figure out where it goes, and I just found myself spending too much time on it, and I thought, I'm not too proud to accept defeat on this. So I accepted defeat and gave myself the permission not to try and do it. Okay, so I'm just basically cleaning up as much of the marker pen as is possible off all of these frets before I get into the stage of masking off the fingerboard. The marker pen is a mucky part of the process, but it's as long as you can use a solvent like naphtha, you can clean it off pretty well. In the worst situations, if it really won't come off, and providing your finish you're working on is a poly finish, you can actually clean it off with some cellulose thinners, but you want to be absolutely sure that it's a poly finish before you start doing that. So what I'm going to do now with this is I'm going to mask off the fingerboard now and get it ready for sanding, polishing out. I've got some new micro mesh papers, and I've got a new cutting board for my paper as well, which I've already sliced up everything on. Find my blade. This cutting board is not quite as clever a device as I thought it would be, but it seems to be working okay. I've got small, I didn't get any large scale masking tape, so I'm going to be using up a bit more of it, doing thinner pieces, but they will eventually, everything will get covered up like so. So anyway, I think I'll probably save you. Will I save you the misery of this? Oh no, let's keep going. I won't video the bit where I do the sanding, because that does get noisy and takes forever. So I'll just talk my way through this process. Yeah, so that my sort of progress has been hampered a bit by these holidays and gaps from couriers and postage not being up to speed, but it's not too bad. Should get it cleared up next week, but as it happens, I've got about 3 guitars piling in the next day or two. 2 are here, 2 came today, and I guess I'll get the next ones Monday or Tuesday next week. It won't be on the Monday, I don't think. So I've got the Schecter here. I've got a Gordon Smith strat with a hardtail, and that's an interesting thing. That will probably generate a fair bit of discussion on the Facebook page when I kind of post about it, because it's an expensive custom. It's a premium priced guitar, and when the customer bought it, he says that he originally sent it back to Gordon Smith saying, look, I want to lower the action to a reasonable level, but my high E saddle is decked out, I can't go anywhere further. And so what they did was they sent it back shimmed, which of course is the only thing they can do if there's no further reach. Failing that, or you sink the bridge into a slot of some kind, or you what do you need to do? You you build up the neck pocket with a block of something and reroute. I don't know. So it's not really an easy. Well, shimming is the easiest way out for a manufacturer. So he wasn't. Understandably, I wouldn't be thrilled with straight out of the box having to have it shimmed to get the saddles to a just a decently low action. Why would you expect that? So to me, it just shows it's a little bit carelessly manufactured. To have that bad of a geometrical alignment. Anyway, so that was the first thing that he got sorted out. And then another issue was the fact that when playing it, he found his fingers, or the high E string, fell off the end. So he contacted me, and his request was originally, could I refret it and to do the fret ends more vertical to regain some playing length on the frets themselves. And I said, of course, yeah, I can do that. How much you get back is debatable, but let's have a look. So anyway, the guitar's come down, and when I look at it, what I realise is that the strings are falling off the high E top end, but what I found about it is that even if I were to either bevel the frets vertical or to do them as half semi-hemispherical rounded end ones, I would still only gain back about 3/4 to a mil, which you could allocate over to the high E side, and perhaps that might make some of the difference, but I'm not sure it'd make enough of a difference. So it had me worried that the idea of refretting, I would happily do it, but I couldn't absolutely guarantee that it would create enough leeway or room to stop this problem. And it seems like a lot to invest and to not be sure about the solution or the outcome. So what I kind of looked into was, well, originally I thought the guitar was a tremolo strat, but it turns out that it's a hardtail, which I didn't see. It wasn't shown in the photograph. So it's a hardtail, which actually, while they're the original spacing is 52, and that's clearly too narrow. Sorry, the 52 is 52.5 is too wide for the neck. So what it gave me the option to look at was, could we find a 50mm bridge hardtail for this particular guitar? Now, 50mm tremolo bridges of any quality are impossible to find. In fact, I don't think really anyone makes them. But fair, decentish quality are 50mm hardtail bridges are not so difficult to find. Again, they're not common, but there are more options, more choices. So I found a couple, and at this point we are kind of considering where to go now. We've got two things really we can work with. First one is to create a little bit more room in the neck pocket with some careful sanding to allow a tiny bit more of a neck shift. And that means that we can redistribute the space that's already there, which is pretty minimal, but we still have a bit of leeway about the string alignments going down. But then on top of that, there's a bridge that we can get, an ABM bridge, which has an adjustable bridge saddles that go from 50mm up to about 56 in the total spread, which is really handy because we could go for the 50 and see if we can get away with the 51, and so it won't feel that different than the existing one. But of course 50 coming in 2.5 mils overall here actually comes down to nothing in terms of feel down here, although it's, you know, it's mostly expressed down here. So we've got a couple of options. So I'm gonna with that one I'm going to make the adjustment in the neck pocket, a little bit of careful sanding on this long edge, get a little bit of a tilt, further tilt to realign the strings, and then reassess it. But I'll probably go for that bridge with the adjustable thing. Hardtail bridge should look pretty good on there. Anyway, back to the Schecter. Sorry to hijack your Schecter mic. Talk about someone else's guitar. I'm going to go off camera now, recharge the phone a bit, and just take care of the sanding, polishing out of all the frets on this, and then we'll come back with clean up, or when it's been cleaned up, and put some new strings on. So see you in a short while. Okay, we're back with the Schecter, sanded out, polished out. I've been through all these screws to check which of them, if any, are not standing or seating right, but actually they're all guidable if you sort of push them in the right way. So if you felt one of them didn't go in right, what I've done is I've pulled them back out somewhat, and what I would suggest doing is carefully, I'm doing it quicker, start them off and line them up straight, and then drive them home again so that you're confident that they've gone in straight, which they have here. As always, when working with a screwdriver near your finish, be sure you've got a good bite and guide the screw before you do anything else. So don't trust it just to kind of teeter on top of the screw. I've been caught out that way, or I've made that mistake too many times. So light touch, firm up, screw down. That all feels good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on. This has gone nice and smoothly and fairly quickly because a fair bit of the preparation stuff I did off camera anyway, so that's kind of helped things along. But I've also given everything a clean over. So the time's come to restring, and what I'm going to do, I don't know how well you'll see it from there, I'm going to thread these strings and load them up. Now, as people who've watched my videos before will be tired of hearing me say by this time, or the stage of the play, stage of the game, is the stringing up, restringing and stretching part of your setup process is really, really critical to the guitar staying in tune. So I often like to surprise people, some people, by saying your tuners, those things you turn at the other end of the headstock, they have almost nothing to do, I'd go as far as saying, practically speaking, nothing to do with your guitar staying in tune or not. The cheapest tuners will keep a guitar in tune because they don't go backwards. It's almost impossible unless, well, the string would break before it went backwards. But so it's contrary to what we kind of logically think, and not surprising given the name tuners. They are there to get your guitar into tune, but they don't play a role in keeping it in tune, or it's not because of them the guitar goes out of tune. So what is it? Well, the guitar goes out of tune for two main reasons. One is the condition of the nut. If the nut slots are in any way too narrow, or have a wiggle in them, or they are in any way creating friction and holding the string up in any way, shape or form, then that will constantly put your guitar out of tune. So I'm going to zoom in down this end a minute. So that's really important. So getting a tusk nut is an absolutely vital thing to do if you want your guitar to stay in tune. I'm going to use a machine driver to tune this up, to tighten the strings up. Now these are locking tuners, so I'm going to show you how I prefer to treat them. So I'm going to line up all my holes in a line first of all, so I can string these relatively easily without too much fuss. Okay, so your tuning stability, two things: the nut, get the material correct, get the slots cut properly, and get the first fret action set at the right height. You get that sorted, you reduce all the friction, and your the nut component of your tuning stability will be taken care of. That's why I pretty much don't use anything but tusk nuts anymore. So here's how I put them on, even with a locking tuner. I pull them on and I pull the locking tuner back about a centimetre, sort of the string, and then I lock it off. Now you'd think to yourself, why do that since you've paid money for a locking tuner? Why not go all the way through? Well, the reason why is because locking tuners work by clamping and crushing the string, and it'll clamp and crush the part where it makes first contact with the string. So if you go all the way through like this, pull it taut, make sure the ball is up in the back of the guitar, pull it tight and lock it off. That will crimp it right there. If you need to slack this string off for any reason, okay, you slack it back to this point and it will break. If you try and undo it and put it back in again. So by giving yourself 1 centimetre of pullback before locking it off, you still keep a minimum amount going round the post, which is a good thing to do, but you've got enough to allow you to slack the whole thing off, do whatever you might have to do, and then retighten it again. And I promise you, somewhere in your guitar career, you will thank me for that reminder, because you'll get away with, I don't know, taking a saddle off and turning it back to front, so like on a Les Paul you might get a bit more intonation room out, and if you'd have not done this with your locking tuners, you wouldn't have the leeway to do it. It would break the string and you would then be looking for a new set of strings, or one of a single one, which isn't cheap. So all the way up through, a centimetre back, lock off, wind that bit on, sending it underneath the loose string, which is what I'm doing here. Better to have some on there. Also, locking tuners, to be honest, the idea is good. It's a nice idea, but because of the way they crush the string to retain it, it makes them less than ideal for me. So I think you can get just as good grip and just as much tuning stability with regular tuners, and by only putting 1 fret's worth of wire around them and not just a centimetre that we do locking tuners. But I wouldn't pay all that money for what people think of as the ease of just shoving the thing through. I can tighten up a regular non-locking tuner just as quick as a locking tuner. So here we have all our strings on. Now this is going to be an interesting one. When you are using a floating tremolo, you have to use a tuner to get your guitar into tune. You can't do it relatively, really, because you may be lucky and get away with it, but most of the time you need to have a tuner handy so that you can tune it up to pitch, and as you tighten up one string, the others will go out of tune and so on. So I'm going to get a wire cable thing. It's not that one, is it? Yeah, it's this one. Get a guitar cable and plug it in to my tuner, which is behind here. Right. Let's check my view. Never the best view in the world. Right. Okay, so right, let's get this volumes up so we can pick up a signal. Come on, 440, not 441. Sometimes that happens. I have no idea why. So I'm just bringing these up to a bit of tension. Okay, and then I'm going to just give them all a little tug to seat them properly before I start attempting to tune them. Pick guard. Right, lower front. Well, taking care of that. Okay. So I get an A there. Now hear how different it is. Close. Now, when you're tuning with a floating tremolo, all you're doing to begin with is you're just pulling the back of you're tightening up the strings, and you're putting string tension on against the spring tension at the back, and it will take a while before the whole lot comes to equilibrium. So what I'm doing is, as I tune, I'm going to also stretch the strings, so I can sort of, when I get there to the right pitch, and the tremolo bridge should be horizontal in the same place it was before, assuming these are the same gauge strings that Mike had on before, but or close to the same gauge. We should float around the same sort of position. But I'm going to stretch and then go back to my tuner. E, A, D, G, B, E. Now expect again the E to be out again, right? And that's what happens. We're still bringing it all up to pitch, but again we might as well do the stretching part here. This is the other half of your tuning stability, by the way. The nut, getting that right, the right material, and cut the slots to the right width and depth. That's half of the tuning equation. Stretching the slack out of your strings is the other half, and it takes a physical sort of kicking like this, actually manually squeezing the slack out of the strings, and having to be careful because it risks breaking the thinner strings, but there's no substitute for stretching it out. Once you've got that slack out and your nuts correct, your guitar will stay in tune forever. Well, for a long time. It'll be easy to put in tune, and it will stay in tune when you play it, and including with the tremolo. So I'm just looking at the back of this now. The tremolo is rising up. It's not quite level. There's some people pulling in. I think there's a kind of camping session going on here. the landlord who owns this site, I think rents adjacent bits of the site to biker gangs and families coming on camping trips to Cornwall. So this being the bank holiday weekend, I guess it wouldn't be surprising at all that I've seen a few people wandering about on the site, probably looking for the toilets and washrooms and whatnot. Right. So we're close. I'm just going to undo that for a second. So I like to give it another bit of stretchingness, just to make sure we're all thoroughly embedded in. So little details. I'm seeing a tuner screw that's gone in a bit sideways as well. See, that's close to being in tune. Yeah, it's just someone's a little wonky. I don't think it'd be easy to adjust this one. I don't think it's kind of gone in the whatever direction that the pilot screw has cut it. But yeah, just a little bit. It's not the end of the world, but just a little tiny detail. Put it all the way in. See if it looks a bit better. Yeah, it's not so bad. Okay, I'm going to do one more stretch. That's probably about 4 we've done on these. And again, you also want to stretch the string on the other side of the nut as well. We get all of this slack, or as much as possible. You'd be amazed how long, how much, and for how long this slack comes out while you're playing if you don't do this. And even if a tiny, a wafer thin piece of string goes out of tune, then it spoils your whole thing, and you'll come out of a solo and one string will be out of tune, which means you have to think, worry and retune or something. You take care of it first, as we're doing here, between string or after string changes. You'll enjoy being able to just play it. Pick it up, tune it, stays in tune, goes in tune easily. That will be more down to the nut. Stays in tune. That will be the slack and the nut. So really, you want to do that until it stops going. That's a nice neck. I like that. So we are pretty much parallel where it was before. Now we can put the tremolo in, and let's hear the tuning. There you go. So that's pretty much it. Oh, the only thing I have to check is the intonation, and we can do that now while the guitar's still plugged in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tune the 12th fret harmonic and then fret it. And what we really want is for that note to be the same as the pinged harmonic. Fractionally flat. Hey, somebody's partying out there. I can hear music. Well, these are showing up just fractionally sharp. quite sharp. So these are sharp, and that's because they're not pulled back far enough. And I can see that here, the pattern is too flat. And I'll give you a quick zoom in. Okay, see that? That's in a good place. Nearly exactly the same, and those are a bit better. That one's too long, too short, sorry. So basically, we need to make an adjustment, and it's a good sign that shows you how accurate or how reliable this business with the saddle positions are. So I'm going to pull these back to where they should be, and then we'll run through the intonation again. Obviously the tuning will have gone completely off now. I'll just bring this one back now a little bit, and we'll go back on these. Push that one forward a fraction. About a millimetre on each one. It's about all you expect the difference to be, is a millimetre apart, and if they aren't a millimetre apart, or if they're even the same, you need to kind of revisit them and adjust them. Okay, so I think that looks like the stepping should be a better, should be more righter than it was. Let's put that there. B flat. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. What have I tuned up to now? So that bit of moving around, as soon as you change the tuning, of course, the saddle positions and the tuning, you've got to go through the tuning up again. There we go. Intonated correctly as well. So Saturday night done and dusted. Oops, one more thing, of course. Let's replace our rear cover plate and get the dust off it. And there we go. So we will use our hand screwdriver for this. But that's it. Intonated, set up, lowest possible action, and all done. I'm ready to go home. What am I doing tomorrow? I don't know yet. I have to think. We won't be doing the Firebirds, that's for sure. And we won't be doing the Gordon Smith, although I'm looking forward to finding out what that one's going to throw at me. I mean, Schecter, what I like about this is that this is straightforward in the sense that it's a very well made guitar. You know, the components are really good quality. All the tolerances are pretty good. So nothing surprising. Nice quality. Everything's sitting nicely. I mean, the pickup positioning is some personal taste. Again, that the principle behind that is that the closer to the strings the pickup is, the more the output, but the less the tonal dynamic. So they say, and I think I would be struggling to hear it. I've tried to really hear the difference. You can only start to hear it out from my ears when you get to the extremes, as in you're so close that it's starting to kind of blow the amp out. But generally speaking, a sweet spot has got to be a subjective thing, where you would find where you like it best with the amp you use. The corollary is true, and that means that the further away the strings are from the pickup, the more tonal dynamics apparently there are, but the less output. So I guess it's a balance in all of those things. So I'm going to place this little string tree in there, done and dusted. I'm going to put the tremolo arm in there and double check my list. Nut, we kept it. We didn't have to change it. It's playing okay just as it is, with the widening and lowering of the slots on the first three. Replaced metal string tree, done. Nice little action. Yep. Fret level recrown punch, done. Fit new strings, yes. Tremolo setup, I think it's okay. I haven't tried it yet, but it is okay. And the pick guard, taking care of those. So that's it. Everything done on this one. Mike, thanks for sending it to me. It is nice. I would happily have one of those. Nice quality bridge. Everything good about this thing, and sounds great as well. Just I haven't played it plugged in, but I've just been evaluating it acoustically, which is sounds like to do when I'm doing the setup, rather than get distracted by the tones made by the electrics. Okay, let's make sure those are all done up. Strat buttons, everything's good. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon on the next one.